You may be seated, thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Ron.
Welcome back. Feels like we never left. All right. Mr. Escobar?
Be Mr. Michaels.
Mr. Michaels?
Morning, Judge.
Morning.
Defense calls Dr. Philip Hayden.
Hold it right there. Face the court and read the question.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Okay, very good, thank you.
Please state your name, spelling your first and last name for the court reporter and the judge, please.
My name is Philip Hayden, first name Philip, P-H-I-L-I-P, last name Hayden, H-A-Y-D-E-N.
Now, before we start, I'm going to give you an exhibit. It's Exhibit 111. That's the defense's number. If I may approach, Your Honor. That's a copy of your CV to help you, if you need to, remember some of the many things you've done in your past, in your educational and professional background, okay?
Okay.
So let's talk about first, what is your occupation?
Right now, I'm a law enforcement consultant, and I also have a company that's an investigative company.
And when you say law enforcement consultant, explain to us what it is that you and your company does.
As a law enforcement consultant, I'm available to law enforcement if they need help, but I also work as an expert witness in that for both the plaintiff and the defense.
Have you also provided consultation and expert witness services to state attorneys and U.S. attorneys' offices?
Yes, I have.
Give the court some examples of the offices you've provided these services for.
The Department of Justice, Washington, D.C., the Department of Justice in Iowa, the Department of Justice in California, so several U.S. Department of Justice offices. State's attorneys have been in Birmingham, in Chicago, Des Moines, Iowa,
Sarasota,
Miami-Dade.
Miami-Dade.
Miami-Dade, yes.
Feel free to look at your CV if you need to, Dr. Hayden.
Okay.
What are some of the other state and city attorneys' offices you've consulted and provided expert witness services to?
Okay, and here the United States Attorney's Office in New York City, Western District, New York, District, New Jersey, Washington, D.C., El Paso, Texas, Portland, Oregon, Alexandria, Virginia, Eastern District of Pennsylvania, and the state and county attorney's offices, Delaware County's Attorney's Office for Prince George's County, Maryland, Connecticut, and defense plaintiff attorneys in Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland, Las Vegas, Nevada, Denver, Colorado, Kansas City, Pasadena, Texas, Birmingham, Alabama, and the Swedish defense minister.
Now, have you ever been qualified in state court to render an expert opinion?
Yes, I have.
And in what field?
In use of force and also in police policies and procedures.
And in federal court?
In federal court, the same.
Now, before we get to your services in this particular case and your opinion in this particular case and what you've done in this particular case, let's talk a little bit about your background. I understand that you're a veteran of the U.S. Army.
That's correct.
And from what year to what year?
1964 to 1968.
And you entered as a private?
That's correct.
And what was your rank when you separated?
I was a captain.
And why did you separate from the armed services?
I was on a physical disability. I shot up pretty bad in Vietnam and retired out of the military.
And so when you were in Vietnam, you received certain honors, did you not?
Yes, I did.
The Purple Heart,
Yes, I did.
the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry,
Yes, I did.
Conspicuous Service Cross,
Yes, I did.
the Army Commendation for Valor,
Yes.
Bronze Star for Valor,
Yes, I did.
and also the Distinguished Service Cross.
That's correct.
Now, before we get to your FBI service and your experience in the Federal Bureau of Investigations, let's talk a little bit about your educational background, okay? I called you doctor when you came in. Let's talk about bachelor's. Where did you get your bachelor's and when?
From Adelphi University, I received that in 1972.
And what is your bachelor's in?
It's in accounting and business.
And you have a master's?
I have a master's degree I received in 1980
What school?
from Adelphi University
And what is the master's in?
accounting.
Let's talk about your doctorate from what school?
From Nova Southeastern in
And what
Fort
year?
Lauderdale
What year?
in 1997
And what is your doctorate in?
in education.
It's in education. How does that relate to your current work as an expert and consultant in the field of use of force?
As an educator, what I had to do is understand how people learn, how people transfer that information that they see, they hear, and how do they interpolate that to they actually use those type of skills that we're trying to teach.
And specifically, was that concept and those ideas applied to the training of law enforcement officers?
Yes, specifically to that, yes.
And that's a program that you developed?
That's correct.
And that's training for use of force and things in that realm. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Now let's talk about your career in the FBI. When did you join the FBI?
I joined the FBI in 1973,
And how many years were you with the FBI?
26.
Before we go into some of your training and experience in the FBI, let's talk a little bit about what your various assignments are. So when you start the FBI, I imagine you go to an academy,
Yes, that's correct.
and where is that?
That's in Quantico, Virginia.
And what sort of training do you receive at that point?
Received 16 weeks of training, which involves all the investigations that you might do in the federal realm. And at that time, there was like 350 different type of investigations, criminal, intelligence work, counterintelligence. So you receive training in all those different areas. You receive firearms training, defensive tactics, physical fitness, investigations, interviewing.
And are you also schooled in the concept of use of force?
Absolutely, yes.
And that would mean when it's appropriate, correct?
When it's appropriate and what force you should be able to use.
And do you also even learn at that very early time the various cues and things you should look for when deciding when and if to apply force?
Yes, that's a critical factor in learning that, yes.
And how much force to apply?
That's correct.
Now, as an FBI agent, you go in, go to Quantico, you go to the academy. What's your first assignment?
After I get out of Quantico, I go to Chicago. And in Chicago, I was assigned to the theft from interstate shipment.
And how long is that assignment for?
I was in Chicago for just about 3 years.
And tell the court what it is that you did in that particular assignment. In other words, what did you do when you're assigned to, you said theft of interstate
Shipment.
shipment?
Basically truck hijackings and things like that that cross the state lines, and investigating those crimes and conducting the arrest on the individuals that you're able to identify.
Okay, so you would be involved in the investigation
That's correct.
and also the apprehension of the individuals that were being investigated.
That's correct, and all the paperwork that goes with it.
Okay. What's your next assignment?
I worked in counterintelligence, and I worked on Polish intelligence, dealing with the individuals at the Polish embassy.
And what years are we talking about?
This is from 1973 through 1976,
Before the wall came down?
before the wall came down, yes.
And what did you do in that particular assignment?
I worked pretty much undercover and just following the different individuals that they had from the Polish embassy that we were interested in.
Next assignment?
Next assignment, I was in Chicago, and they move you around a bit so you get different experiences. And I worked bank robberies, fugitives, and that was my last assignment in Chicago.
And what is that particular work involved?
Here again, investigations in bank robberies, doing the interviews, doing the investigation, then conducting the arrest. And the others are fugitives that you might have a fugitive that is identified through the federal system, that there's a warrant for that person and you try to find that person and make the arrest.
And does that particular assignment put you in contact directly with violent and potentially violent individuals?
Absolutely it does.
And what's your next assignment after that?
I was transferred to New York City.
And what did you do there?
When I first arrived there, I worked in counterintelligence in the Russian squad.
What year are we talking about?
That was 1976 to probably 1977, early 78.
And so there you're doing similar work regarding the Russian embassy as you did in Chicago with the Polish embassy, is that fair to say?
That's correct.
And how long do you do that for?
Just about a year and a half. It's not
What's
long.
your next assignment?
Next assignment, I ended up going to the one of the organized crime squads. And on the organized crime squad, I was one of 4 different individuals that was assigned to that squad to set up and develop, plan, and do the arrests of individuals that we identified.
Okay, so you weren't actually involved in the undercover work itself,
I wasn't involved in any undercover work in that, no.
but you were involved in the arrest.
That's correct.
So again, placing you potentially in direct contact with violent or potentially violent individuals.
That's correct.
Next assignment?
Next assignment, I worked on a squad that did go undercover, worked undercover, in identifying different criminal aspects, both in the criminal side and on the counterintelligence. And we worked to help identify those people and to make the arrest of those people.
And any certain segment that was targeted?
No, it was what they requested from the different squads within the division I was assigned to, that if they needed help in certain identifying or arresting certain people, then they brought us in to assist them.
Okay. Again, in contact with dangerous and potentially dangerous individuals?
That's correct. And we were
what's your-
working we were working with task forces from the New York City Police Department also that was involved in this.
Okay. Next assignment?
Next assignment, after I left Chicago, I went to Quantico, Virginia.
You mean after you left New York?
After I left New York, I'm sorry, yes.
What year are we at then now?
I went to Quantico was 1983.
And at that point, are you a supervisory special agent?
That's correct.
And what is the purpose of you going to Quantico?
I was asked to come to Quantico to work on the SWAT program and the different aspects of SWAT, sniper training, defensive tactics, firearms.
And does part of that have to do with your military background?
Yes, it did.
What sort of training did you receive in the military?
I went through the basic training of infantry. I went through officer candidate school, went through airborne school, ranger school, pathfinder school, demolition, part of a demolition school. I trained for 2.5 years.
Now, when you go to Quantico, is it to be part of the SWAT team, or is it to help develop it, or both?
When I went to Quantico, the unit was called the Special Operations and Research Unit, was designed to work with the SWAT teams throughout the United States, for FBI SWAT teams. And we did the training for them, getting equipment for them, and assisting them if they needed our assistance in setting up command posts and things like that.
So is it fair to say that in 1983, began your career where specifically you're training other law enforcement personnel, special agents, local police, etc.?
That's when the larger portion of my training began. We did do training back in New York. I was a firearms instructor there, defensive tactics instructor, and sometimes we worked with the local police as well as FBI agents.
But you're also involved in training other people then at that point?
That's correct.
In 1993?
1983.
1983.
Right.
Now, during that time period, what is it, 83 to 99, is that fair to say?
83 to 90 is us in the source unit.
And actually training individuals, that goes all the way out to 99, right?
Yes, that's correct.
In terms of with the FBI.
That's correct.
During that time period, what sort of areas are you training officers and special agents in?
We're training them in the tactics of officer sound tactics. How do you go into a situation and do it in a way that's conducive to your own safety and the safety of the individuals? We dealt with all those tactics, dealing from firearms to defensive tactics, hands-on, arrest techniques, and then also planning how to plan for an arrest and how to actually take it down.
During that time period, give the court an estimate of how many law enforcement personnel, special agents, and local, state law enforcement that you were involved in training. How many people?
In the combined of the SOARS unit and when I went over to the practical applications unit and then to the law enforcement training for safety and survival, the SWAT was probably 1,500 or so people. We went into the other area of the task force training, probably another 4,000, 4,500 people. And that was both federal agents, could be from DEA, FBI, a lot of different federal organizations, and the task forces were also combined of federal and local, state, county police officers.
Did you also train law enforcement entities in other countries?
Yes, we did.
Give the court some examples.
We went to Russia on 5 different occasions. We went to Ukraine, went to Uzbekistan, went to several countries over in the Eastern Bloc countries. And we went to Jordan, went to Egypt, and what we did there was trained our police officers in the program that was developed for the law enforcement training for safety and survival.
And did you help create a law enforcement training for safety and survival?
Yes, I did.
And when did you do that?
I was asked to do that in 1992 for Violent Crimes Task Forces.
And that's after you had already been training individuals for 9 years or so.
Yes, that's correct.
Let's talk about, while you were with the FBI, some of the lesson plans you designed. First, tell the court what a lesson plan is.
Lesson plans were developed to help our students have a guideline for what they're going to be instructed in and take them through the stages of what the first step would be all the way through that training process.
And what areas are we talking about?
We're talking about several different areas. I have them written down here. I can't see it right here. Oh, here we go. Some of the lesson plans that we did with making arrests and handling subjects, preparations for an arrest and search warrants,
Sorry, can you repeat the last one?
arrest and search warrants, site surveys, law enforcement operations orders for arrest and search plans, approaching an entry point, conventional room entry, techniques for room clearing, procedures and equipment for room clearing, clearing hallways, interior movement, stairways, attics, roofs, crawl spaces, vehicle stops, quick entries, which is sometimes referred to as a dynamic entry, use of ballistic shields, entries and vehicle clearing, mechanical breaching, tactical air operations, and rappel master instructor.
So what happens with those lesson plans? You write them up and it's the FBI property, or explain how that works?
These lesson plans, they had, the original lesson plans were there, and they were not in a very good order nor in detail. So I was asked to rewrite these for the new programs. And
Who is
once
it that asked you to do that?
the supervisors within the FBI at Quantico
Okay.
asked me to do that.
And you also wrote some articles for the FBI?
That's correct.
What do you mean by articles written for the FBI?
They asked me to write different articles on the use of force, how to arrest an individual in a safe manner, how officers can be protected and do their job in a way that's more safe and conducive to safety. And so these articles were written for their benefit.
And in addition to your vast experience, what other information did you use to write those articles and to create those lesson plans you talked about?
At the FBI Academy, they have a legal library, and in that legal library, they have thousands of books dealing with different police topics. I spent many, many, many hours in that library going through different research material, trying to find people that had written different articles, see if it was peer-reviewed, and if it's things that we could actually use. Once I pulled it out, we thought we could use it, then we mixed it within our own group of about 12 different individuals.
Did you also incorporate the training that you had received
Oh, absolutely.
and the experience that you had in your various assignments during your tenure in the FBI?
I did that for myself, but I also did it for other agents that were there, that we all had an input into if we thought that process was a good process or not.
Okay. You also helped to produce a video or
That's
videos
correct.
for the FBI?
That's correct.
Now, when you were on the FBI, were you on any special units? You mentioned SWAT. Were you a member of the SWAT unit?
Yes, I was.
What other units?
I was also an aviator. I flew fixed-wing aircraft for the FBI.
All right, so you were an FBI pilot then is what you're
Right.
telling us?
Right.
Were you a member of the FBI shooting board?
Yes, I was.
Tell the court what that is.
The Shooting Review Board is held at headquarters in Washington, D.C. And that board is made up of about 12 different individuals that some of them have tactical background, some have a legal background, some have administrative background. And every shooting that an FBI agent is involved in, or every time a FBI agent discharges a weapon outside of the training area, could be an accidental discharge, could be something he's cleaning his weapon at home and it goes off. Anytime an FBI agent is involved with a weapon that is fired outside the training, that comes to the Shooting Review Board. And the Shooting Review Board analyzes everything that was done from the report that was given.
Okay, and that means that if an agent, special agent, fires his weapon, actually shoots somebody, that's included within that review board,
Absolutely.
as well as dropping the weapon at home and then discharging.
That's correct.
And nationally, every single special agent of the FBI or any FBI personnel who was involved in any sort of shooting, that review board that you were part of reviewed that shooting. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you did that for how long?
I did that for about 7 years.
And did you always, was your opinion always that the shooting is justified?
No, it was not.
Now, during your tenure with the FBI, did you have occasion to interview agents or other police officers post-shootings? In other words, police officer agents involved in a shooting, were you involved in the interview of any of those individuals?
Yes, I was.
And on how many occasions do you think?
Well over 200 to 300, I'd have to look exactly, but it was well over 200, probably closer to 300.
Now, in this case, you were hired by my firm,
That's correct.
Escobar and Associates, correct?
That's correct.
And you're being paid for your services.
That's correct.
Now, in this particular case, what sort of materials were you provided to review to formulate your opinion?
I was given 137 different documents from your association to review, and I have a list of that if you would like to see that list.
Okay, why don't you tell us what is on that list, or read it if you need to.
Well, there's depositions, over 20 depositions, statements. There are police reports. There are officers' statements of interviews that they did. A lot of statements, many statements.
Did you look at some photographs as well?
I looked at photographs,
Autopsy report?
autopsy report.
Did you listen to recorded statements?
I listened to a recorded statement of Mr. Reeves.
Did you get a big, thick police report as well?
Yes, I did.
And what else did you do in terms of your investigation?
Well, I reviewed all of that material, and then
How many hours do you think you've spent reviewing the material and formulating an opinion in this case?
probably material that you sent, probably a little over 50, 55, 60 hours. And then reviewing material, my own material, probably another 30 hours.
Okay. At some point, did you come down to Tampa
Yes, I did.
as part of your investigation in this case?
That's correct.
And did you actually go to the Cobb movie theater?
Yes, I did.
All right. Tell us about that. You went there. Who did you go with?
I went with Mr. Escobar.
All right. And where did you go?
We went to the Cobb Theater, went inside. The manager opened it up for us. It was not open at the time. And we went into Theater 10.
All right. And that's the theater that's in question in this particular case?
That's correct.
And you knew about that before you went into Theater 10?
That's correct.
All right. Tell me what happens when you get into Theater 10.
Went in there and we looked at the different seating arrangements they had back there. Went over to the seating that Mr. Reeves was sitting in. I sat in that chair. Went to where Mr. Olson was.
Let's talk about that. So you
Yeah.
went into the theater, you sat in the chair that Mr. Reeves was in. How did you know that was the chair that Mr. Reeves was in?
From the videos and from the reports.
And did Mr. Escobar also indicate to you that that was the seat?
Yes, he did.
And tell me what happens when do you actually sit in the seat?
Yes, I do.
What are the lighting conditions in the theater?
Well, at the time, Mr. Escobar and I are talking, and it's just open up the lighting that they had in there, the natural lighting. And after we got done talking, the manager turned on the sound, and he
Okay,
turned...
we're going to get there.
Yeah,
So
okay.
when you go in, the theater's not dark, is that what you're telling the
That's
viewer?
correct.
And I know it's a relative term because, you probably don't know what the settings were and all of that, but it wasn't a darkened theater, that's what you're telling us?
That's correct.
And so you sit in the seat, and what is your purpose of sitting in the seat? What are you doing there?
What I'm trying to do is trying to see what Mr. Reeves, how he was sitting in that seat, how he felt in that seat.
Agree or disagree that you're trying to evaluate what the environment is, at least as it's concerning the physical constraints of the seat, if you will?
That's correct.
And so when you sit in that seat, what do you notice in terms of the seat itself? For instance, are there arms to either side or not arms?
Arms.
And what does that do in terms of restricting your movement, or do you even try to move?
No, I definitely try to move within that seat, and I try to move around. How I can move to the left, to the right, how I'd have to stand up in there, how close it is to the seat in front of me. So I'm moving around there, seeing what the restrictions might be.
We're going to talk about that. So you're in the seat, and how much do you weigh?
I weigh about 250 pounds.
Okay. And so did you find it easy to move around in that seat?
Not easy to move very far. I could kind of move my body around in there, trying to get in a comfortable position, but there wasn't much room to move to the left or right.
Now, in terms of the seat in front of you, initially when you sat down, was that seat leaned back or just left in the position with nobody sitting in it?
It was left in the position, nobody sitting in it.
And tell me what observations you made concerning that seat in terms of distance from where your knees were.
Well, from the photographs that the crime scene had done, I saw that they had a measurement tape, and it was about 18 inches from the front of the seat that I was sitting in to the back of the seat, with it just sitting straight up. From where Mr. Reeves was about 36 inches from his seat to where Mr. Olson was.
Okay. But without getting into the measurements, I want to know what you observed, because certainly you weren't there with a tape measure.
No, I was not.
So when you were seated there, could you easily reach up and touch the seat in front of you?
Yes, I could.
And you said you tried to get up. Tell the court how it is that you tried to get up.
Well, when you're standing up there, I wanted to see just how easy it would be to stand up from that position. And you see then, because of the seats, the way they're developed, you have to lean forward quite a bit in order to be able to stand up. And because my back is also messed up, I had to use the handrest to kind of push myself up.
And what did you observe when you tried to push yourself up? And specifically, I'm talking about what did you observe in terms of your proximity to the row in front of you? In other words, as you were pushing up, did you get closer to the row or did you get farther back?
And when I was pushing up, I was right to the back of the row, so I was all the way forward.
And when you pushed yourself up, where was your head positioned in relation to that back seat?
Just about where the back seat was.
Now, in that initial seat, what else did you do? Did you try moving around? You saw in the video, because you said you looked at the video, Mr. Reeves sticking out his leg. Did you try to move around at all?
Yes, Mr. Reeves said that he had slid down in the seat, slid back in the seat, so I wanted to see how that would be, and I tried to do the exact same thing.
And were you able to?
Yes, I was.
Now, from that back row, did you try leaning the seat back at all? Of the back row seat?
Of the back row seat, trying to lift.
Lean it back. Did it lean back at all?
No, it really, because there's a wall there, it leans back very little.
Now, what's the next thing you did? Now you sat in that seat. What do you do next?
Mr. Escobar was over where Mr. Olson was, and we were kind of interacting, pushing the seat back to see how close it would be, if he could reach me, if he couldn't reach me, and then.
Now, Mr. Escobar is not 6'4". We can agree with that, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And so tell me what your experience was then with Mr. Escobar, at least, leaning on the seat. Was he able to reach you?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And what area of your body did he reach to?
He was able to reach right basically almost to my chest by leaning over the seat.
And was he pressing on the seat so it was leaning back?
Yes,
Did you tell?
Yeah, it appeared that's what he was doing.
Did you see where his legs or knee was?
No, I couldn't see from there, but he tried it in different positions, and he's leaning back in the chair. He did not try to stand up in the chair, but he was kneeling in the chair on one occasion.
Okay. And that's the seat that's not in front of you, but the one that would be to your right.
To the front right, yes.
So he's not actually coming between seats, he's manipulating the seat to the right.
He moved over in between the two seats also.
And when he
So
moved over between the two seats, was he closer to you when he reached over?
he was close to me when he came over that second time, when he came through the crack of the seat, basically. And it disappeared that he could almost be right on top of me.
Okay. Now, from there, what's the next thing you do in a theater?
Well, I ended up sitting in where Mr. Olson was.
Okay, let's talk about that. So now you change positions, you sit in the seat that Mr. Escobar was near,
Yes, that's correct.
and it would be the seat that, as you're looking forward, if you're sitting in Mr. Reeves' seat, it would be the seat to the right.
That's correct.
So what did you do in that seat?
I did the same type of things that Mr. Escobar did. Mr. Escobar was sitting in Mr. Reeves' seat.
Okay, so tell me what it is that you did. Now you're there, is the seat bottom up or down?
The seat was down, I was sitting in it. When I stood up, the seat came up, and I was leaning back in the seat.
When you were sitting in the seat, did you try to reach back at all?
Yes, I did.
And were you able to?
Not when I was sitting in the seat?
Yes.
Not when I was sitting in the seat, I didn't try to reach back.
Okay. When did you try to reach back?
When I turned around.
All right, so tell us about that. You turn around?
I turn around, I stand up and turn around, and I reach back.
All right, and the seat bottom is up or down?
Up.
And your knees are where, against the seat bottom?
It's basically right against the seat to where the upper part of the seat is, where it comes up. That's about where my knee is.
All right, so you're not kneeling on the seat?
My knee is there, but I wouldn't say I was kneeling
You're
on the
not
seat.
kneeling on the seat when it's down.
No, I'm not.
The seat is folded up,
That's correct.
and your knee is contacting the seat as it's folded up. Okay, I'm trying to understand. Do you agree with me or disagree with me that your knee was touching the bottom of the seat as the seat was in the up position?
That's correct.
Okay, so you agree with me?
Yes, I do.
All right. Now, when you're in that position, are you right in front of the seat or over to the side?
I did both. I was right in front of the seat and moved over to the side.
Tell us about right in front of the seat. What, you reached over?
Reached over, and I couldn't get as close as I could when I moved over.
And when you say as close, how close did you get from the position where you're in front of the seat?
When I was standing right in front of the seat, I could probably reach over and just about touch him, but not quite.
Okay. And touch Mr. Escobar?
Yes, that's
All
correct.
right. And we can agree, not only is he not 6'4", but he doesn't weigh 250 pounds.
That's correct.
And so when you reach over, you can almost touch him. You say, how tall are you?
6 foot.
Okay. You're not 6'4".
No, I'm not.
Now, when you reach over, is your hand on the back of the chair? By that I mean the part you lean back in?
Yes,
Or
sir.
where's your hand?
My hand was on the back of the seat.
And when you say you're reaching over with your right or your left hand?
I'm reaching over with my right hand.
Now, you said you had a bad back. How were you able to balance yourself? Explain to us what it is that you were doing to accomplish that sort of position.
Well, in order to accomplish that, my knee was on the back of the seat, my hand was on the back of the seat, my knee was on the back of the seating part, and I was pushing over and trying to reach over with my hand to see how far I could go.
So you were pushing on that back of the seat that actually moves a little bit. Is that what you
Yes,
explained?
that's correct.
All right. Now, after you do that in front of the seat, what's the very next thing you do?
Well, the next thing we did, we had the manager turn on the sound and
Did you move towards the in between the seats?
Yes, I did move between the seats, yes.
And what did you do once in between the seats?
I did the same thing. I tried to move over towards Mr. Escobar to see how much I could.
And were you
reach
able
over.
to get closer or
Yeah,
not?
closer, yes.
Were you able to touch him?
Yes.
In what area?
I could touch him as pretty much as where he's sitting back with his hands are in that area.
And
So
unless you
right
wanted-
around the chest area, I could get in that close.
Okay. What's the next thing that happened in the movie theater?
We had the manager turn the sound on and in a preview, and I don't remember which one it was, and turn the light the way the lights would have been at that time.
Okay, and in terms of how the lights really were, the day this all happened, agree or disagree, you don't really know what it's like, what the lights were officially like on the day this happened.
No, just what the manager said, this is what it would have been on that day.
Okay. And so you're there, the lights are, according to the manager anyway, at preview level, and you're watching some preview, but we don't know which one, right?
That's correct.
And what do you do, where are you when you're watching that?
We do the same thing from Mr. Reeves' seat to Mr. Olson's seat. We kind of moved around. Mr. Escobar was moving back and forth to see how much I could see of him when he was moving around. It was just the two of us, so it was, I could follow him okay.
Okay. And so the purpose of that from sitting in Mr. Reeves' seat was what?
At that time, to see with the lights down, to see how clearly I could see Mr. Escobar.
Okay. And agree or disagree with me, you also did that to get some idea of Mr. Reeves' perspective. Agree or disagree?
I agree.
Now, part of what you did in this case, you talked about the materials you looked at. Let's talk a little bit about those materials. You said you looked at the depositions. Would that be depositions of both lay people or patrons and law enforcement as well?
That's correct.
And did you review statements by lay people or the patrons in the movie theater?
Yes, I did.
And did you consider those statements in formulating your opinion in this case?
No, I read through all of them, but I did not use it because I thought it was really contaminated at that point.
And let's talk a little bit about that. As an FBI agent from the very time you began in Quantico. Tell us about your training in interviewing large groups of people.
Well, one thing that was pointed out, and was pointed out very clearly and right from the very beginning, is that you have to separate witnesses in order to make sure that you get statements that is in their mind, not words from somebody else.
Why is that a big deal?
Because people have a tendency to want to fill blanks, and when they hear what other people have to say, they have a tendency to put that in their statement, thinking that that's what they did see or hear.
So what does your training tell you in terms of considering statements that have been subject to this contamination?
Well, what it says is that you have to read everything and be as thorough as you possibly can when you read any of these documents, whether or not contaminated or not, to see if there's some kind of consistency. So I did read them, but when I formed my opinion was not based on much of what they said at all.
And what is it that gave you the idea, or why are you of the opinion that these statements are contaminated, witness statements here?
Because several of the witnesses within their depositions stated that they had talked to other people, they had talked to each other, they had talked to spouses, before they made their statements, and that large groups of people were standing around talking about what happened, discussing the case.
Okay, so they overheard other people talking about it.
They overheard other people talking and were involved in some of the discussions.
Okay.
What happened?
And so you actually went to the movie theater. There was a video in this case. Certainly you had a chance to review the video.
Yes, I have.
And several clips.
Yes, I have.
And several versions of the video.
Yes, I have.
Mr. Martin showed you a video during your deposition.
That's correct.
Clips and all of that. You recall that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so it'd be fair to say that you had a chance to review the video in this case.
Yes, I did.
Now, did you use your review of the video as part of your formulation of your opinion in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What else did you do in this case?
Well, after reviewing all the material, the videos, the photographs,
The reports?
the reports, everything that was given to me by you, and looking at my background, my past
Well,
experience.
did you also interview Mr. Reeves?
Yes, I did.
Okay, when you came down
Yes.
to the movie theater,
Yes, I
you
did.
interviewed Mr. Reeves, right?
That's correct.
All right, tell us about that. Where was the interview conducted?
At Mr. Escobar's office.
And how long did that interview last?
Probably no more than an hour.
All right. Now, did you take notes?
No, I did not.
Did you record the interview?
No, I did not.
What was the purpose of interviewing Mr. Reeves?
I'd already read all the statements and had a very good understanding of what he said, and what I wanted to do was clarify in my own thinking some of the questions that I had about his statements, things that he had said. So I just wanted to talk to him about that.
Okay. And had you, before you interviewed Mr. Reeves, in addition to all the material, did you actually listen to the interview Mr. Reeves gave Detective Proctor and Koenig at the scene?
Yes, I listened to that twice.
Okay. Now, tell me about the interview with Mr. Reeves. What does he tell you?
There was nothing really different from what his statement was, that his oral statement, and so when I talked to him, I really didn't see much difference. I just got more clarification about his fear and things like that.
And tell the court what sort of clarification did you get concerning Mr. Reeves' fear?
Well, he said in his statement that he was scared shitless, that he was really scared.
Now, you're talking about, he said in his statement to whom?
To Detective Proctor.
Okay.
So I asked him about that. What do you mean? Why were you scared? What was it that scared you? And he explained to me that he was just scared from the demeanor, the words, the actions of this individual. It was totally out of context of anybody being in a theater. And he was explaining that to me, why he felt that fear.
Okay, well, let's look at Mr. Reeves' statement then. You have it there in front of you?
I have a statement.
And again, I'm talking about the statement he gave to law enforcement that day.
Correct.
Okay. Now, Mr. Reeves says to Proctor, and it's on page 79 of the report, it's line 34 is the transcription that we were provided from the state illicit. Mr. Reeves says, to tell you it says damn there, but I believe the recording accurately says dang. I hate to be here. This is crazy. It was absurd. I tell retired cops that you don't do this. What did Mr. Reeves mean by that? Did you talk to him?
I did talk to him about,
Did you talk to him about that particular line?
not exactly about that
So
particular.
then let's talk about this. Tell me what it is regarding law enforcement officer involved in a shooting, a justified shooting. In your interviews, how does that law enforcement officer feel?
It's probably one of the worst experiences that you'll have taking another individual's life. And every police officer I talked to basically said that it's not something you ever want to be involved in.
Okay. And so that's a possible explanation, even though you didn't ask Mr.
Yeah,
Reeves.
no, I agree with Jack, that calls for speculation.
I'll move on, Judge, he's right. Let me ask you this. Mr. Reeves says, but I've never had anybody jump on my ass like that.
Page and line, please.
Same line 35, same page, 3.
What page are we on there?
It's the printed out transcript. Let me get you a copy of it if I may. Yeah, Coach Judge, I'm sure this tomorrow.
You may.
This way we can be literally on the same page.
Okay,
All right, Doctor?
okay.
Okay. Now, I know I asked you before if that's how Mr. Reeves felt, and of course you can't say that if he felt that, he said this for that reason, but let me ask you this. Would that sort of statement be consistent with that sort of sentiment you described regarding law enforcement post-shooting?
Yes, it would be.
Now, let's talk about the next line down, which is starting on 35. I've never had
Well,
anybody
what page
jump...
what page you on?
Same page 3, I'm sorry, 3.
Oh, okay,
See the little number? There you go.
okay, there we go.
Page 3, line 35. Okay? All right. Mr. Reeves says, but I've never had anybody jump on my ass like that. Let's talk about that. Is that consistent with statements that he made to you during your interview?
Yes, it is.
And tell us about that. What do you know factually about never having anybody jump on my ass like that?
Well, I asked him about that, and he said in 27 years as being a police officer, he'd never had anybody get up and do his face like that. And he said it was frightening. It was very frightening when somebody did that. He said, totally took me by surprise.
Okay. Let's go to page 5.
Excuse me, Mr. Michaels. Judge, would you like a copy of this transcript so you can follow along?
I think she's got one.
I did have one, but I don't have it. It's in my office.
I'm sorry, Judge.
All right, yeah, if you've got an extra one, I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Page 5, line 4, Mr. Reeves tells Detective Proctor, he kept on hollering, I'm not sure what he said, to be honest with you. Do you have any kind of proof that you can point to that Mr. Olson kept on hollering?
No, I have no proof that he kept on hollering except from what Mr. Reeves said.
Okay. And certainly the video doesn't have any sort of audio.
That's correct.
Is there anything that you see in the video that may be indicative of somebody being angry and that sort of behavior?
I see different movements from the row that Mr. Olson was in.
Okay. Again, page lines 5 and 6, same page. Not sure what he said, to be honest with you. He said something, and that led me to believe he was going to kick my ass. Now, again, is that consistent with Mr. Reeves' statement to you?
Yes, it is.
And the previous statement that we talked about in terms of he'd never been in that situation before?
That's correct.
Is there anything you can point at in the video and say, that's where he's saying it?
Yes.
Is there anywhere on the video where you can point to say, yeah, I see Mr. Olson saying that?
No, not where I can see him saying it, no.
So again, you're basing your belief on what Mr. Reeves says.
What he says in the video.
Okay, in video, what you talked about earlier, you see that movement towards Mr. Reeves.
That's correct.
So, looking briefly, line 7, I know I can't go anywhere. So, what evidence do you have, or what backs up that statement that Mr. Reeves is making to Detective Proctor?
I sat in that chair in the theater. I knew that it would be extremely difficult to go anywhere.
All right. You also, did you observe or not observe the distance between Mr. Reeves' chair and the chair in the very front?
Yes, I did.
Is that part of your analysis in determining that that's a truthful statement and that can be backed up with physical evidence?
Yes.
Did you have any reason to disbelieve Mr. Reeves on any of these statements?
No, I didn't.
Now, Mr. Reeves says, so I'm leaning all the way back in my chair. Again, is that something that we can see on the video?
Yes.
Now, line 13, the same page, Mr. Reeves says, my left arm is out in front of me. Now, let's talk a little bit about that. When you interview Mr. Reeves in Tampa, the day you come down to the movie theater, does Mr. Reeves tell you that same thing?
No, I really didn't ask him about that.
Can you see that in the video at all?
I do not see that in the video.
Now, is that what a trained police officer would do, put his hand out in front?
If a trained police officer would probably put his hand up to block whatever strike is coming in at him.
If the police officer was in danger of great bodily harm or death, is a police officer going to put his hand in front before he draws his pistol?
Judge, I'm going to object that calls for speculation. We're talking about every police officer. There's so many variables and situations.
In your training, in your vast experience in being
Judge, I
trained...
have an objection.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was moving on.
Sustain, refresh.
Sustained, I thought. So in your vast experience of being trained and training, is it your experience that police officers are trained to put their hand in front of them if they're about to discharge their firearm?
No. Well, no, it isn't.
Now, Mr. Reeves says, line 15, starting at the end of 14, suddenly my head was to the right, so he hit me with something. I assume it was his fist, but I don't know. Did you, could you see anything in the video where you can identify 100% sure that's Mr. Reeves getting hit with something?
Not 100% sure.
Now, what sort of evidence do you have, whether it's interview, photographs, or other evidence, that Mr. Reeves may have been hit with something other than a fist?
Yes.
What evidence is it that you can point to that would
Two-
suggest that?
Two things that there's a photograph of the cell phone between Mr. Reeves' feet. So we know that that cell phone ended up there. In the video, I saw an arm coming in, I saw a light, I don't know what that light was, but something happened at that point in time.
And did Mr. Reeves also tell you the same thing in your interview of him in Tampa when you came down to go to the movie theater?
Yes, he did.
Line starting at 16, something was wrong with my left eye. I had him wash it out for me, so he hit me with his fist or with something. I think he had his cell phone in his hand because I saw the blur of the screen. Again, are we talking about evidence to back that up? The same sort of thing you just talked about? Photograph?
That's correct.
Video?
Yes, that's
Mr.
correct.
Reeves' statement?
That's correct.
Again, with the left hand, we already talked about that. Hit me in the face, knocks my glasses sideways. Do you see anything in the video or have any evidence that his glasses were knocked sideways?
No, I don't, just a statement.
Okay. And again, there are witnesses that you've discounted because of contamination, so they're not in this mix. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Page 6, line 5, Reeves says, and I, and good heaven, I didn't mean to do that. That was just, I had to say that I've counseled cops for question, how many rounds you shoot? 1. I guess you could stay, I was scared shitless. So did you question Mr. Reeves specifically on what he meant by the phrase at the end of that first sentence, I didn't mean to do that?
I didn't ask him specifically that.
Okay. Certainly the last part of it that seems to be a continuation of the sentence, that he was scared shitless, you talked to Mr. Reeves about that.
Yes, I did.
And was that consistent with his statement to you?
Yes, it was.
Was that also consistent with anything else you did? For instance, your theater visit? Someone would be scared.
Your Honor, I object. That calls for speculation.
Well, Judge, I think you
Judge,
want...
that calls for speculation. If he's going to try to equate that with Mr. Reeves, or if someone else be scared, there's just too many variables.
Judge, he made an evaluation in this case, and he's going to formulate an opinion as to whether the use of force here was justified. Certainly, when we talk about whether or not someone is scared, we have to consider certain factors. Obviously, we can't cut their brain open and look at the scary part and see if that's been affected. But certainly, we can say, well, he's telling me this. I saw the video. I see this individual coming over on 3 occasions. And by sitting in the chair and seeing the close proximity, I can understand why he's scared. It's the same thing that any investigator would do, and certainly as an expert in formulating an opinion, by putting himself in the place, I think he can explain that and make a determination as to whether or not he used that fear in his formulation of his professional opinion.
All right, I'll overrule.
Okay. Anything else aside from Mr. Reeves telling you?
No, from just what Mr. Reeves is telling me and what I see in the video.
Okay, what about being in the theater?
Being in the theater, I sat in that position. I had the lights down. Mr. Escobar was interacting with me at that point, and I was trying to look at this in an objectively reasonable way to understand what anybody with his background experience would feel in that. I have many of the same things that Mr. Reeves has. Bad back, bad knees, bad elbows,
Excuse me,
bad
Judge, I would
shoulder.
object to this line of questioning and the response. He's saying, I'm just like Mr. Reeves, so if I was scared, he's scared. I object to that. It's pure speculation. The way he's answering the question is pure speculation.
Because he's giving, again, an expert can base their opinion on not only education, not only publications, but certainly their own personal experience, professional experience as well. So he's just answering the question. I'll move on, but he just answered the question.
I'm going to sustain us to that and move on.
All right. Now, Mr. Reeves tells you, line 13, the same page, as you get older, you find out you're a physical wreck, right?
That's correct.
All right. Did you look at any x-rays or radiology reports?
I did not.
Can you even read those?
I did not.
Did you have any reason to believe Mr. Reeves in that statement?
I just know that physiologically, that when you get older, things don't really work the way it was when you're 30 years old. So yeah, I had reason to believe that could happen.
Okay. And as part of that, did you actually delve and look at your own personal experience?
Yes, I did.
Page 6, line 34, line 33, we'll start there. Proctor, I hear you. Did your wife, where was your wife at? Reeves, she was sitting on the right-hand side. If she's paying attention, and bless her heart, she's, there's no justification for what happened in there. And so did you ask Mr. Reeves specifically about that statement?
No, I did not.
Page 7, line 19, Reeves. His wife was talking, whoever was with him was trying to hold him back. Do you see any evidence of that in the video?
From what Mr. Reeves was saying is really the only thing that I see that somebody was trying to hold somebody back.
What about any physical evidence in terms of autopsy or other medical reports you received?
What I did see in the autopsy is that where he was shot in the chest, that Mrs. Olson was also shot in the hand, in the left hand, would be consistent with her putting her hand up in front of his chest. With the
So
bullet.
you saw, because you actually saw, did you see photographs of Mrs. Olson's hand?
Yes, I did.
Line 22. Page 7, line 25. I think when I leaned over and asked him to turn his cell phone off, he told me to get the F out of his face, so I knew right away that. What about that? Mr. Reeves is saying that he leaned over and asked Mr. Olson. Is that what Mr. Reeves told you in his interview? Is that consistent?
Yes, it is.
And is there anything on the video that would indicate or make you think that that's a true statement?
Yes, there is.
What is it that you observed on the video?
Well, I see him move forward in his seat 3 times. I don't know what he's doing at that time, but I see him moving in his seat. It looks like he appears to go forward.
And is that the time period before he goes to the manager?
That's correct.
Page 7, line 34, Reeves says, "It was enough for me to try to look for a way out. And my wife was saying, when I got up to go tell the manager, she said, why don't we should have just moved is what we should have done." And she said that after the shooting, I think. Did you ask Mr. Reeves specifically about that statement?
I did ask him about that.
And what did he tell you?
He basically told me that at that point he believed that that Mr. Olson was just being mouthy and there wasn't a problem. He was just going to go to the manager, resolve it, come back in, sit down, and enjoy the movie, and he thought that was it. So he didn't feel like he really needed to move.
Reeves tells Proctor, page 88, it's page 10 as it's printed, line 27. If I had thought that I wasn't going to get beat up, it would have never happened. I was pretty confident after being hit one time that he wasn't going to stop. Again, is that consistent with your interview with Mr. Reeves?
Yes, it is.
And do you see anything in the video to back up that statement?
Yes, I did.
What do you see?
Well, I see in the video that arm appears of arm and part of a body coming in and that light coming across. And that's when Mr. Reeves said he was hit at that point in time.
Okay, and then do you see it the second time an arm coming across?
And about 11 seconds later, I see an arm coming across, and that's when the popcorn comes out of his hand, and then an arm come back in a third time.
Okay. Page 10, line 35, Reeves says, "No, you got to know the lady that was sitting one seat away from me. She should have seen everything." Did you talk to Mr. Reeves about that?
I didn't really ask him about that.
Okay. Now, there have been some suggestion that, Mr. Reeves made this up because he's a law enforcement officer and had time to think. Is there anything in that statement that would, in your opinion, would be indicative of just the opposite?
He's pretty consistent with what he's saying in the statement and what I talked to him about. And as a law enforcement officer, once he was handcuffed and put in the car, he should have known at that time not to speak to anybody at that time. That's what he should have done.
does it seem here like he's trying to hopefully get the police to go talk to somebody so that they can verify what he's telling them?
Yes, and what he told me about talking, he said, I wanted them to understand what happened because he says, I felt like I was the person being assaulted here. I wanted them to understand.
That's not a response to the question. We're talking about whether or not he was suggesting to the police you go talk to this lady, and all of a sudden we have an answer just out of the blue that's just totally not responsive to that question. I don't know where it came from.
What?
The question was about talking to the lady, and then he never responded. I don't know what he's talking
Well,
about.
he was in the middle of a response and got cut off, so I'm not sure what the response was going to be.
Well, the response, what kept going was he's sitting in the car and he shouldn't have spoke and that sort of thing. Had nothing to go talk about the lady because Mr. Knox, I apologize, Dr. Hayden has already indicated that didn't talk to her about that. Now he's asking him to speculate what he meant by that. So it's a speculation and it's non-responsive. That's my legal issue.
Part of the problem is there's been a suggestion here that Mr. Reeves fabricated this and has these quote-unquote self-serving statements. So since we're going to be talking about those, this is a statement that appears on the face of it, certainly the suggestion of it, not to be self-serving at all. Go talk to somebody else, please, because they must have seen it, and everything's going to be all right if you talk to them.
Okay, I got that question, and Mr. Martin's right. I don't recall hearing, all I recall hearing is that he didn't really ask him about that statement. So let's move on.
All right. Now, you didn't ask Mr. Reeves about that statement, but let me ask you, would you consider such a statement in formulating your opinion in this particular matter?
In the statement you were talking
That
about.
Mr. Reeves made, where he's saying, you got to know the lady that was sitting one seat away from me, she should have seen everything. Does that help you determine whether or not Mr. Reeves is being truthful in your interview with him?
Yes, it does.
And how is that?
Because he wants the police to go talk to other people in there. Somebody should have seen what was going on. They would be able to tell you what I'm saying is truthful.
Now, tell us regarding your training, what is important if an adversary has a size advantage? Why are you looking at size?
Well, size, every police officer is trained to evaluate when they go into a situation. Size is a consideration. Is that person a large person or a small person? What is that person doing? So you evaluate everything, and size is one of those things you're going to evaluate.
And does that help an individual trained police officer make a determination in assessing the potential danger of an individual, yes or no?
The police officer is going to do that, yes.
Now, in terms of age, again, assessment of danger and of threat, does an age difference play into that sort of assessment in police training?
Absolutely.
And tell us about that.
If you're going up against a younger individual and you're an older police officer, you don't have the skills that maybe you had when you were younger.
What about this? What if you're a younger police officer and you're going against a 70-year-old?
If you're a younger police officer going against a 70-year-old, you probably have an advantage.
Now, let's talk about confined space. You described you went to the theater, you sat in the chair. How does that play into the assessment of what a person is able to do, a trained police officer, not able to do, in terms of gauging what the proper reaction is?
When you're sitting in that seat, you're trying to figure out at that point, is there a way you could get out of that seat? Is there a way that you could flee the area and get out of it? I didn't believe that there was any kind of way that he could have gotten out of that in the situation as it occurred so fast.
Okay, and you know that why?
I was sitting in that position.
Okay, and could you get out of the seat without coming towards where the threat was coming from?
I could not.
Could you go to the side somehow?
I could not.
Could you go back at all?
No, I could not.
Language, use of language, how does that play into the whole idea of assessing what a threat is and what the proper response to that threat is?
Police officers are taught from the very beginning you have to assess a person by everything that you're seeing. The body language, the actual physical language, a person threatening you, what's that person doing? You're assessing all those things that are going on.
What about the idea of, as far as your training and Wolf training you received and training you impart to others, tell us about the idea of time and place. In other words, because this was happening in a movie theater, does that make a difference?
Yes, it does.
And why is that?
Well, you're dealing in a different environment. It's a darkened area, it's loud noises, there's other people in the theater. You're not able to gather all the information by visually, because
What about the idea that this whole behavior is out of place in a movie theater?
absolutely, it's just not characteristic of what would be happening.
What about unexpected movements? For instance, hypothetical, an individual sitting in a movie theater, he's a trained police officer, and now all of a sudden somebody in front of him or a little off to his right suddenly jumps up and starts cussing. Should that officer be alarmed and be on alert at that point?
He better be.
And if that individual actually moves over now, does that make the threat even greater?
Yes, it does.
And if that police officer is confined to a small space, again, does that make the threat greater?
Yes, it does.
If that individual on the other side is actually moving over with hands or whatever, does that make the threat greater?
Yes, it does.
Now, let's talk about hands and feet as weapons. Are you aware that hands and fists as weapons, because it doesn't appear to be any feet involved here, at least there's no allegation of that. Tell me about what your experience is with hands and fists. Have you seen hands and fists used as weapons in your time in the military in Vietnam?
Yes, I have.
And what sort of damage could hands and fists cause?
It can do great bodily harm to you. It can kill somebody.
Okay. What about cut somebody open
Yes,
so that they need stitches?
yes,
What about fracture of the eye socket?
yes.
What about the little bone around the temple?
There's several bones in your face that can be broken very easily by being hit.
In your experience as a special agent for the FBI and a supervisory special agent, have you also witnessed and had personal experience with injuries, serious injuries, and even death caused by hands or fists?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Just once or twice?
Several times.
Now, let's talk about objects to the head. Tell us about the FBI policy regarding use of non-lethal force, fists, asps, batons, if they're applied to the head and neck area.
One thing is taught when you're doing defensive tactics and you're learning about use of force, deadly force, is that the head, if you go to the head with any kind of a hard object, could be your fist or anything else, is considered deadly force at that point in time.
Okay. Now, in this case, have you formulated an opinion as to whether or not Curtis Reeves reasonably believed that his actions were necessary on that day in the theater to prevent imminent great bodily harm or death?
I have.
And what is your opinion?
My opinion is that he believed that there was going to be imminent harm or danger to him, great bodily harm, or could be killed. And I believe he honestly believed that, and his perception was.
Okay, may I have a moment, Judge?
You may.
Ask the witness.
Any good time for a break?
Yeah, that'd be good, because I need to set up my computer and get some technical things done.
All right.
We have 15 minutes, so I can get everything done.
15 minutes. Dr. Hayden, you're free to take a break as well,
Okay,
but you
thank you.
can't discuss your testimony.